first thing I do after picking the woods for a new build isn't cutting or marking. Rather, I measure the top. Because if you're following the Gore method of thicknessing a top, getting this measurement right is what determines if your guitar sings and maximizes its responsiveness or whether it just kind of clunks. Almost everybody I've talked to or seen gets one part of it wrong. So keep watching, and I'm going to show you exactly what that mistake is and how to make sure that you don't make it and work around it. So for this build, I just want to show you what I've picked. So this top is Sinker Cypress from Aaron Lucas Guitars. This particular top is from a log, I believe, that fell over about 370 years ago. And I picked this top out because it sounds really good and it's a really gorgeous top. I'm pairing it with this back and side set of Malaysian Blackwood. So I'm really excited about this. So this build is one that I'm actually putting together to take with me to the Puget Sound Guitar Workshop later this summer. It looks like it's going to be a pretty gorgeous build. I've already tapped both the top and the back a little bit and they sound kind of cool. So let's focus on these. The very first step is to weigh and measure the top. Now, when I'm doing this, I just take my pencil and I write them very gently, of course, on the top or on the back. That way, as I'm working through it, I don't lose it. Later, I go through and I put it in the spreadsheet where I track all of my builds so I can kind of see what they do. But I start by just writing gently on the top. So the things that I use to measure, right, I've got a tape measure, a micrometer, my pencil, and I just have a shipping scale here. And the truth is, as long as you're, within a 0.5 millimeter, you're fine, right? So don't overly stress on whether it's, 224 millimeters or 224.1 millimeters when we get to these numbers, right? Just do your best, get the number that you can. And I actually went through with a scraper on these, make sure they're smooth. What I found, even with like the graded tops from Pacific Rim Tonewoods, as long as you're sanding or scraping it, you can get it to within 1% of the numbers that they measure. All right. So let's measure this guy, all right? So take my tape measure, the metric tape measure, and I gotta get my glasses because I'm old now. I can't see anymore. It is 242 millimeters. You probably can't read that. And if I don't write it down, I'm gonna forget it. So I'm gonna write 242 millimeters here. Next thing I'm gonna do is measure it this way. And it says 649 millimeters, right? These have to be rectangular. Those tops that are not rectangular, you won't get the right numbers. So for my thickness measurement, I measured it in a few spots. It's 5.08, 5.07, and I wiggle this around and I try and find kind of the smallest number, right? Because it can get bigger, but it can't get smaller. 5.07. Down here, I'm gonna write 5.07. So now I have the thickness, the width, and the length, okay? Just like a string, has partials or harmonics, so does a plate. As long as the plate is rectangular and smooth, you're gonna get consistent numbers, right? So the next thing I do is I put this on my shipping scale. It weighs 343.6 grams. And then I write that down too. This is probably the most important part of this, is understanding what their measurements are and how they work and why. Okay, so the 3 frequencies we care about measuring are the long frequency, the cross frequency, and the diagonal frequency. Now, just like a string has harmonics and partials at multiple intervals, well, so does this, right? And so we want to get the primary or the first partial on a plate. Now, unlike a string, it isn't exactly in the middle. For the long, it's at 22.4% of the top. Now, I actually measured this earlier. I knew how long it was, but I haven't measured the frequencies yet. But I measured the sizes so that I could go through and I could make a mark right here at 22.4%. And so I'm gonna grab it right here at 22.4%, and I'm gonna tap it in the middle. And that's gonna give me a frequency, right? And when I get this frequency right, it will be the long frequency. And I'll put this up to the phone so you can hear it. Right, we're listening for the note and then how long it sustains and how complex the note is. Okay, for the cross frequency, it's also 22.4%, and I've drawn a line here because I've already measured it. As you do this more, you'll get pretty good at just knowing where that number is, right? And so we can tap it here, hold it right in here. That's much higher pitched, okay? The third frequency, and we'll talk about this more because that mistake I mentioned, this is where it happens. Well, the third frequency, the plate divides into quadrants, directly down the middle. And directly like this, right? And so this frequency, you grab it right here in the middle on the top, and you tap in the lower corner, right? And so then the final thing to understand about these frequencies is how they work and how big they're gonna be. So the longest dimension is gonna be the diagonal. So that'll be the lowest number. The next longest is this one. That'll be the medium number. And then the shortest is up here. That's gonna be the highest frequency. So if your numbers don't go from lowest to highest, you know that you're not gonna be right, okay? And so how do I measure it? A lot of people use Room EQ Wizard. A lot of people use Visual Analyzer. You can actually measure it with a strobe tuner. I got this really cool Acusonics hammer from Gallup Tools. They're pretty good at least measuring some of these. Pick the tool that works. I wrote the FFT tool on my website because that's what I wanted for me, right? I'm able to have it do exactly what I need in my job. And then I give it away just because I want other people to be able to benefit from it. So I'm gonna start the screen recording on my laptop, and then I'm gonna show you how I measure these. I'll try and put the screen down there so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully that works out. Okay, I've got my website up now. When we go into the plate tuning audio analyzer, which is what I call this, really it just records a WAV file. Nothing is stored on my server. It does let you save the WAV files locally and open them back up so you can see the FFT or spectrograph. The first thing I do here is I pick a microphone, and there's a lot of debates about whether you should use a calibrated microphone, an uncalibrated microphone, the microphone on your laptop. I happen to have the calibrated microphone. You don't even need to buy this calibrated microphone because with the calibration, it doesn't change the frequency. All it does is adjust the relative dB levels between the different frequencies. Another way to think about this is if you trust your phone to tune your guitar, and I do, then the built-in microphone in your phone is going to measure this frequency just fine too. Okay? All right. So I'm going to pick the UMic microphone. I'm going to grab my top plate. I'm going to stick it in front of the microphone. I'm going to use this fancy hammer because it does make a really good hammer, and it will read the number too, at least for this measurement. And then I'm going to tap it. I'm going to let it ring for about a second. I'm going to do that 4 or 5 times. And then I'm going to hit stop on the tool. All right? So here goes. And there might be some warning messages. You just got to work through them the first time. At some point I'll fix them. But I promise the tool does work. Okay. So I'm recording. Got this in front of it. I've got the microphone kind of positioned around it. That's 4 times. I'm going to come over here, hit stop recording. Now there's a graph. And on the graph, I can see that there's really 3 big peaks here. The first peak is at 57 hertz, right here. So I'm just going to click it, and that'll make a dot and a row in the table below. The next peak is at 133 hertz. And the third peak is at 168 hertz. Now my guess, based on having done this, is that 57.82 hertz is the right number. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that down here. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually just record again because I'm now gonna try and capture the cross frequency, right? The long frequency is the first frequency, the cross frequency is the second frequency I measure. This one is going to be higher pitched than the long frequency. So let's hit record again. Now I'm going to hold it. Remember, I've made these marks here. And I'm going to tap. I'm going to tap right in here somewhere. Note that I didn't actually stop the recording. That's fine. Set the hammer down. Stop recording. And again, I've got a peak at 55 hertz. I've got one at 133, which is exactly where it was before. And one at 149. Now, which one is it? Right? Now I can look at the mic. I said I had this hammer, so let's look at this hammer too. This is charged, I think. Yep, it's charged. So let's see what the hammer says. 58, that matches the long recording, right? That's the same number, so that's wonderful. 150, 168, 150, 149. And over on my screen, I have actually a mark at 149. I hit it. If I hold this here, what I want to do is I want to get this center portion, right, between the 22.4% of vibrating, and I want to dampen this thing because I don't want any misleading. So now if I hold it here, it's kind of an awkward place to hold it. Right, so I'm holding it at 22.4% here, and in the middle of where this would ring. And now, I got it for a second. Now the hammer's showing 312. But now let's see what happens when I hit this again with I'm just gonna use my finger this time. Also, there's noises going on. If I hit record, what did I get? The biggest peak that I'm getting is at 133. This is the cross, right? It's hard to get on the hammer, but it shows up here. Okay, finally, and this is the thing that I talked about, we have to get the one that's actually hard to measure, which is the diagonal. But based on what we know, what number do I expect to see for the diagonal? Well, I know it's the longest measurement. I know that it's a 60, so it had better certainly be lower than 60. A lot of people will take that 60 hertz and put this in as the diagonal, but it isn't. If you put that into the calculator, it'll tell you to thicken your top too thin. And we don't want to do that, right? Because these are not cheap. And we want them to be beautiful guitars. So let's see if we can get this. Now, to measure it, and again I've marked it, but you just grab it in the top middle, right? And then I'm gonna go over here again. I'm gonna hit record and tap in the lower corner. And I just wanna get this as close to the low corner as I can. Let's see if I got it. And lo and behold, here's this number at 41.47 hertz. Now, I've done this a bunch. I'm pretty good at getting this. So I'm just gonna click it, 133, and this one is 41.47 hertz, okay? Let me show you how to measure it wrong though, right? Because this is the mistake that people do. So they'll grab it in the middle, right? We're gonna grab it in the middle, we're gonna hit it not in the lowest possible corner, but right here. And let's see what happens. I grab it in the middle, I hit it right here. The hammer is registering 168 hertz, by the way. And if you can see this stream, I have a peak right here at 127, 130, and I have another one here at 170. So, and I'm just gonna clear these now that we don't need anymore so you can kind of see it. So I hit the clear button. That'll clear the dots and the table. There we go. And you can see clearly that 41 did not show up on it. Right here is this little tiny peak here. That's the number we were looking for and it's not there. Right, it's really easy to mess this up. You have to grab it exactly in the middle, tap it really in the corner down here, as far towards the corner as you can, and try and get it. I'll show you, I'll do it successfully again. Stop recording. Now, this graph is actually really nice. You see the peak right here. And it's actually, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click it. It's actually 39. So even I got it wrong before. I'm going to take that 41 and write 39. Okay? That's how I measure the frequencies. Now, after I do this, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the thickness calculator. I'm going to type in the measurements that we just took, as well as the thickness calculator, and we'll see how thick I should make this top, all right? So, that's under resources. Target plate thickness calculator. Boom. And this is exactly the calculation I had in Trevor Gore's book. I didn't change anything. I didn't invent this, right? If you're curious how this actually works, I'm not going to explain it, but please buy Trevor's books. Robbie O'Brien has a course on doing all of this in detail. It's even more detailed than what I'm doing. I'm just trying to keep you from making mistakes. Go buy his course on Luthery Academy or go to one of his workshops in person. I did. It was well worth the money. There's no question. It goes straight to the person that invented it. You can actually find a link to this calculator from Robbie's website. And thank you to Robbie and Trevor for doing that. Okay, so let me walk you through these things. We're going to type in the numbers. I'm going to get my top here so I can read the numbers off the top because I certainly can't remember them, right? Okay, so the length of the target box. Now, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to make the guitar in this. So 0.49 meters. So that's how long from here to here, right? I actually feel a little bad because I'm going to make an OM out of this, right? But a jumbo is 52.6 centimeters, right? So that's the length of the guitar box, 526. The lower bout, the width, 21.5, right? So 0.215. All of these units are metric. I didn't want to do any conversion math, so you need to do the conversion by moving the decimal to the right spot. The mass of the panel in kilograms. We just weighed it, and it was, I didn't write it, 343 grams, 0.343 kilograms. The panel height, we said it was 5.0 millimeters, so 0.00508. The panel length, 649, so it's a really big panel, 0.649. The panel width was 24.5, so not 227, but 24.5. The long grain frequency, right? So these are the numbers we measured. We said, I wrote down 57.8 hertz. I type 57.8. The cross grain frequency, we're at 133 hertz. So I write down 133. And the twisting frequency, the diagonal frequency, the transverse frequencies, they're all words for the same thing, right? 39. If you don't have a number that's close to 40 or less, you don't have the right number, I promise you. And then the target frequency, the default is 75 hertz for a top. So if I make this a rectangle this size and I want it to be 75 hertz on the long grain, how thick does it need to be? That's exactly what this tells you. I hit calculate. And so, wow, 1.81 millimeters if I want to make a jumbo at 75 hertz. But I'm not making a jumbo, right? I'm making an OM. I'm changing these to 49 and 39. And now it says that I want to be 3.07 millimeters, right? So 3.07 millimeters. It says my mass for this top is going to be 200 grams. That's actually heavier than I want. So I'm going to have to make some decisions about this, right? Because I have to put bracing on it. And I like my OMs to weigh about 150 grams. So that's going to be a little bit of a problem here, right? The density is 424 kilograms per meters cubed. The one thing about this cypress is it is more dense. It makes beautiful, beautiful guitars though, all right? And it gives you Young's modulus goes this direction, across the grain, and it gives you the shear modulus. So all the important calculations. And then I've got this row right here that you can't read very well, but this is designed so I can copy and paste it into a spreadsheet, right? And that way I can just track it. Then I'm gonna write on this, the thickness, 3.07, all right? And that's it, okay? So this is gonna be a thick top. I'll tell you the secret though. I'm probably gonna make it thinner than that, because even though I follow this, if it's too heavy, it's not gonna be loud enough. When I actually go to thickness, what I do is a combination of this measurement using Gore's method, and then I do what I learned from Robbie O'Brien, which is to maximize sustain and the tone coming out of it. So as I get close to 3.07 millimeters, I'm gonna try and maximize the tone I get out of it. Anyways, that's how I do this. I hope that you know now how to measure these, how to use my tool, or if you're gonna use Rumi Cube Wizard, that tool works great too. So if this all made sense to you, and you wanna use the Gore stock calculations either on my website or in your spreadsheets, please give me a like, give me a subscribe. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments field. If you found this useful, put it in the comments. If you hated it, put it in the comments. If you think my shop is too messy, put it in the comments. I respond to everything. If there's other things you'd like to see me build or do, ask about it in the comments. I hope that this helped. I'm probably not going to show you, but I measured the back the same, right? I'm going to do all of the same calculations on the back. It's exactly the same. I just follow the guidelines in Trevor Gore's book about the target frequency for the back. And then I use my common sense too, if it seems too thick or too thin, right? I'm not going to do something that feels wrong, because that's not the way that I experiment, especially when I'm building with Malaysian blackwood, which is gorgeous, okay? But in the next time I talk about this build will be further along. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be showing you. I may or may not have you see me thicknessing the sides, because I just put them through the sander in my safety planer until they're the right thickness. Take care. I will talk to you later.